Warm and hearty greetings to everyone present here. Hope you all are in the pink of your health. I, Jayanti Joshi, on behalf of Institution's Innovation Council of Pune College of Pharmacy, feel privileged to be the host of today's webinar where we will be talking about process and prototype designing. Last year was filled with many challenges, be it delivering the best healthcare services or surviving the economic crisis. But what helped us to sustain all these changes was innovation. Innovation is progress in the face of tradition. We here at IIC-PCP nurture and encourage innovation as one of our core values. IIC, which stands for Institutions Innovation Council, is a non-profit organization set up by the MHRD. IIC has successfully set up many of its cells in the renowned higher education institutions to promote and encourage entrepreneurship, innovation, and startup ecosystem. It gives me immense pride to share this that our college, Pune College of Pharmacy, is one of the few pharmacy colleges which has its own IIC cell. We have delivered some of the best innovative products and have a few accomplishments to our name. I would like to extend my warm and cordial welcome to all the honorable dignitaries present here. Principal in charge Dr. Atmaram Pawar, Vice Principal Dr. Varsha Pokharkar Ma'am, Vice Principal and Dean Dr. Janvi Rao, President of IIC-PCP Dr. Sharvil Patil, Vice President Dr. Deepali Bansode, President of MHRD IIC Dr. Bothi Raja, respected teachers and all fellow students. I feel honored to introduce our chief speaker today and one of the best business coaches out there, Mr. Chirag Gujrati. Mr. Chirag Gujrati is one of those people who chose passion over mainstream profession. He dropped out of engineering and became a business coach to mentor aspiring entrepreneurs and students alike. He started his career as a university professor at Independent College in Dublin, Ireland, and at Oro University in Surat. His key areas of expertise being entrepreneurship, marketing, and strategy management. He is currently working as a business coach and entrepreneurship program chair at Midas Foundation, India. The spirit of entrepreneurship lies in its drive to create and expand one's own enterprise. Similarly, Chirag sir has three startup ventures to his name, all of which focus on education and e-learning. Speaking about the topic of today's session, which is design thinking, Mr. Chirag sir is a certified design thinking practitioner from IDEO and IBM. He is also a certified agile coach. His key areas of expertise lie in lean startup, product management, strategy management, and entrepreneurship. Having conducted over 50 workshops and being the visiting faculty of some of the renowned institutions, there couldn't be a better person than Mr. Chirag Gujrati to deliver a session on today's topic, which is design thinking. I cordially welcome you, sir, and thank you for taking out time from your rigorous schedule. I welcome you to the honorable dais to share your insights. Thank you.
Um, Thank you very much, Jayanti, for the introduction. Good afternoon, and my greetings to all the dignitaries present in this session. It's my honor and privilege to be with you and share my thoughts and experience on my learnings and understanding of design thinking, and specifically on prototyping, the subject that I'll be focusing on today. Um, as Jayanti mentioned that I am an engineering dropout, my suggestion and request to all the students here is that don't try this at home. It luckily worked for me, but it doesn't work every time for everyone. So dropout is not a solution to become an entrepreneur. But hard work, innovation, and persistence is. So with that, let me start the topic for which I'm here, design thinking and prototyping and innovation. So let me start with a story. And the The reason why I share stories is because these are the best form of learnings that we have had in our lives. We may not remember what we studied in our class 5 or grade 5. What was the chapter number 5 of the science textbook we had? But we certainly remember the stories that our parents and grandparents and other people shared with us, and teachers shared with us in our childhood. So I prefer, storytelling as a method of, sharing my experiences and teaching subjects that I practice. So the story goes this way. When I was kid, about 4 or 5 years old, I saw some of my friends, making an aeroplane and flying those paper aeroplane, in my class, in my school, in my, in the playground that we went to play. And I got curious, and I wanted to make a similar aeroplane, because if you get it right, it flies well. So I came back home. I took a piece of paper and I make the first aeroplane, and it didn't turn out well. I made the first aeroplane, and then I went to my dad and I said, Dad, have a look at this. I made an aeroplane. And my dad said, let me show me whether it flies or not. I tried it and it didn't fly. I got disappointed, and my dad said, don't worry, beta. You go back, make one more aeroplane, and come back. So I went back into my study room and took another piece of paper, made another aeroplane, make some corrections, made for the mistakes that I made in the first aeroplane. Uh, got a second version of my aeroplane, went back to my dad, uh, and showed him the aeroplane. He said, "Okay, we got a new aeroplane. Show me whether it flies or not." I tried; it didn't fly. Um, then he said, why don't you make another aeroplane? The third time, I was kind of feeling irritated. Why can't my aeroplane fly? I'm trying to make it. I saw my friends, flying the same aeroplane. So I called my friend and I asked him, listen, tell me, how do I make this aeroplane? This is how I'm making it. So he gave me some tips. You are doing this wrong. Get this angle right, and it'll certainly fly. The third try, I took another piece of paper, made the aeroplane basis what my friend suggested, that this is how it should be made. Made the aeroplane, went back to my dad, and he said, "Show me whether it flies or not." And this time, uh, probably this was the first aha moment I had in my business career, because it was the first product that I made which became successful. And my father gave me a round of applause because the aeroplane flew. Now, why this happened? If I relate it to entrepreneurship and innovation, most of us, when we try the startup route or the entrepreneurship route, we try to make a product that is best as per what we think, and we end up failing. Whereas if you ask those who know how to make the product, and probably those who want to use the product, as to what kind of product you need, come back with their feedback and inputs, and make a product basis their requirements and their insights and inputs, you probably will end up making a better product. So in the first instance, I wanted to make the product according to me, didn't work. In the third instance, I asked the person, what kind of product you need, or how do you want me to make the product. I got the feedback, and then the product was made properly, and it worked. Similarly, design thinking helps you create products, processes, strategies, and services which are human centric. Design thinking is a philosophy which keeps humans, the users of the product, at the core, at the center of it. And basis that, we design products. Let me share the steps that goes into designing the product or in design thinking. Now, different companies, different organizations, different institutions, they have different versions of design thinking process. But at the end of it, it's all the same. It's about keeping the users at the center and design for them. You would be surprised to know most of the innovative companies, starting from Google to Airbnb to Samsung to Infosys to some of the biggest companies, Fortune 500 companies in the world, they use design thinking in its purest or in some format for all their innovations. About more than two-thirds of the companies have realized that design thinking philosophy has helped them come up with innovations much faster and in much effective manner. So let's look at, there is an IBM way of design thinking, there is an HP way of design thinking, there is an ITO way of design thinking, there is a Stanford Design School way of design thinking. So some suggest there are 4 steps to design thinking. There are, some other institutions who say there are 5 or 6 or 7 steps of design thinking. For our understanding, let's take the Stanford Design School's way of design thinking, which is a 5-step process. The 5-step includes first, empathy; second, define; third, ideate; fourth, prototype; and fifth, test. Let me take you through these 5 steps in a next 15 minutes time. Now, first step, which is empathy. Empathy is, it's a word that is used very loosely. In business terms, in design thinking terms, empathy is basically where you try to understand what your users' pain points are, what the users or the customers' problems are. Why we do that is because we are in business, because we want to provide solutions to the problems that your customers are facing. If you don't try to understand what their problems are, you will come up with a product which may or may not solve their problems. And if you go out and observe the successful products, they are solving some sort of problems. Never start a business with an intention of building a multi-billion-dollar company. Start building a product or a business to solve a specific problems, and eventually, if you are successful in solving a problem, eventually you will become a multi-billion-dollar. So empathy suggests that you understand what your users are going through and how you can do that. Take a product that you are working on or the idea that you are thinking about. Ask the users that if you were to use this problem, what product, or if you were to given this idea, what problems do you think this problem or product has? And not only ask them questions, give them opportunity to interact with the product. For example, I have a bottle of water with me. I'm going to take this bottle of water and take it to the people who are users of it. And I'm going to ask them questions about what do you like about this product? What do you not like about this product? I'm not only going to write down or list down what they say, but I'm also going to observe what they think while they are answering my questions, what they feel when they are using this product, and what they are feeling when they are using this product. You may give me a cup of coffee and ask me, Chirag, how is this coffee? And I may say that, listen, the coffee is good. So the answer, what I'm saying is that the coffee is good, but the way I am describing the goodness of the coffee, it implies that I'm just saying I love this coffee. Otherwise, I hate this coffee. I don't like this coffee. So as you know, the first step of empathy is that you put yourself in the shoes of your users. See what they feel when they are interacting with the product. Now this gives me a clear problem that coffee, when they are saying it's good, but when they are interacting with the product, when they are using the product, probably it's the worst possible coffee they are having, because it shows when I am expressing my emotions while having coffee. So that's empathy. Now I realize that for the sake of saying, my customers are saying it's a good coffee, but probably they are not going to come back and have the same coffee again, because their expressions are telling me that I need to work on the coffee, otherwise it's not happening, I'm not going to sell it. So that's empathy. Once you know what the problem, the pain points of your customers are, you try to define the problem statement. The problem statement means the problem for which you are trying to find a solution. I like my coffee hot, I like my coffee strong, and I like my coffee with some flavor in it. And what you are providing is a simple coffee just served with hot water. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create and prepare a problem statement that defines the problems that my users are facing, so that it helps me come up with solutions. Let me share another story with you. The name of the story is Mouse in the House. There's this couple just got married, and they moved to a new house, a nice house. One day, one morning, the wife got up, started making tea for her and her husband, and suddenly found a mouse in the kitchen. Started shouting, and the husband, newly married, got up from the bed and started running, and asked the wife, honey, what's the problem? And the lady says, there's a mouse in the kitchen. He said, don't worry. Uh, When I come back from the office this evening, I'll get a mouse trap. You have the bread ready, I'll get the mouse trap. Solution given. The man comes back from the house, gets a mouse trap, puts a piece of bread in the mouse trap, puts it in the kitchen where they saw the mouse, and that's it. They think that, next day morning, let's go to bed. We will see the mouse being caught in the trap next morning. To their surprise, when the husband got up next morning, thinking, let me go and check whether we have caught the mouse, the villain of the house, in the trap or not. Uh, so he goes to the kitchen, checks the mouse trap. There's bread in it. The trap is where it was. There's no mouse in it. The wife follows, comes to the kitchen, says, did we catch a mouse? No. And suddenly, while making tea, she sees another mouse, the second mouse. And the husband goes back to the office saying, don't worry, for you, I'll do anything. I'll buy a second mouse trap. He goes to the office, while coming back, buys the next second mouse trap, puts it next to the first mouse trap with a bread in it, goes to the bed. Next morning, they come back, both curious, go to the kitchen to check whether they have got the mouse or not. What do you think? There was no mouse. And then they started thinking, what's happening? The society gave us a solution. The market gave us a solution that if you see a mouse in the house, what you got to do is get a mouse trap, put a bread to it, and you'll catch the mouse, which didn't happen. What is happening here? What do you think? The real problem is we are not addressing the right problem. You might see a third mouse in the house the next day, we don't know. And you might end up getting a third mouse trap. But the real problem is not the mouse. The solution is not the mouse trap. But if you can identify the place from where these mice are entering into the house, and if you fix that hole from where the mouse is entering the house, you probably will not see any more mouse in the house. That's the definition of problem. When we are designing a problem, we are looking a product, we are looking at the problem at the surface level. We need to dive deep into what is the root cause of this problem. The reason why I don't love my coffee is not because I don't like the taste of the coffee, is because probably I like it hot, but my mug is not equipped enough to keep the coffee hot for more than 15 minutes. So you might end up making 10 different types of coffees, but I still don't like it. Where the problem is, I need a mug that can keep my coffee hot for an hour. So that's define stage two of design thinking. You got to define the right problem that your users are facing. Once you identify the right problem, you move on to the third stage of design thinking, which is ideate. Ideate is where you use different techniques such as brainstorming, mind mapping, swap shoes, and multiple others. There's one more method that you can use for brainstorming. And I was talking about the way we have been brought up. The way we all were writing our exams. Remember the exams, school and college and university exams, the kind of questions we were asked. Unfortunately, for every single question, there was one right answer. We were not allowed to write the answer that was correct in our perspective. We had to write the answer that was correct, that was given in the textbook. That probably had has taken a bit of toll on our creativity. Whereas in ideation stage, we need to open our minds and come up with as many solutions as possible. The solutions that may sound crazy, that may sound wacky, that may sound not feasible in first instance, may end up becoming the most effective solutions for the problem that at hand. So in ideation stage, we come up with, we get together as a group, everybody comes up with multiple solutions for a problem. For example, um, I was once asked that, if you are late for your college and your college is about 30 minutes drive from your home and you are already 15 minutes late, how would you reach college on time? Now, again, uh, the answer that I gave was, I'll bunk the first session. Now, again, don't try this at home. Start on time. The purpose is that the solution at the beginning may sound stupid, may not sound uh, college friendly, isn't it? But that gave birth to my first business idea, which was e-learning. You don't have to go to college. At the end of the day, now think about this, why do we go to college? Is it only to learn new concepts? I think I went to college to make friends. I went to college to build lifelong relationships, and in the process, I got to learn something new when I was in class. So the purpose of ideation is that you come up with as many solutions as possible for the problem at hand. Now, what happens is when you have too many solutions, you diverge, have as many solutions, and then you converge back, bring all the solutions together, evaluate all of them, and identify the most efficient solution out of all the solutions you have. Come up through brainstorming or mind mapping and all those things. Uh, Once you have identified that one or two solutions, then uh, you go to the next step in design thinking called Prototype. Now, prototype for me is probably the most important stage of product design. Now, think about this. We all, the entire world, what we see is a prototype. What we are today is a prototype of what we will be 5 years from now. What you are today is a prototype of what you will be when you graduate out of your college. What products we use today are the prototype of the products that we will be using 5 years down the line. The cars that you drive today were in prototype stage in 2015. So everything keeps evolving. Imagine this. You want to go and watch a movie. What would you do first before you go and watch a movie? You'll do a couple of things. One, you'll go online to your favorite site and read the review, how the movie is, and then basis that you will take a decision whether you want to go for that movie or not. Alternatively, you will also watch a trailer and decide that, oh, the trailer looks interesting. The movie looks like worth a watch. Let me go and spend my 200 bucks on that movie ticket. Similarly, prototype is such experience. If you do not make a prototype and build a product without showing a prototype to your customer and taking their feedback whether they want this product or not, probably you will fail, right? Let me share another story with you. It's a 2-minute story. I have done, well in my life. I've got enough money. I'm just sharing example. I still need more money. uh, but I've done enough in my life. I've, seen it all, earned a lot of money, and have a nice family, and professionally done well. Now I want to build my dream house. I go to an architect, show him the piece of land that I have, 1,000 square meter plot, and tell him that, listen, architect, I want to build my dream house. The architect says that, okay, done. You come after a year, your dream house will be ready. I go back after a year and I see a house, but that house is whose dream house? Not mine. Architect's dream house. Why? Because I didn't tell him that what kind of house is my dream house, and he didn't show me a design that this is how your dream house will look like. He ended up building a house that was his dream house where I will have to stay. That's what significance prototype has. If you want to build a product, make a prototype of it. If I may share my screen and tell you what kind of prototype we can, what different types of prototypes are, you will be able to understand how we can make prototypes. So on your screen, you can say there are two types. See, there are two types of prototypes. One is a high fidelity prototype, and second is a low fidelity prototype. I'm sorry, there is a typo here, but consider one side as low fidelity prototype. Now, low fidelity prototypes are the prototypes that can be made easily, cheap, and fast. For example, you want to make a mobile app, and for that mobile app, you don't have to make an app. You just have to make uh, sketch, probably a landing page, as to see how the screen or the app looks like, right? So it could look like uh, this when I show the prototype. Just a second. It could look like this. This represents a paper prototype. You don't have to spend a lot of money. Now, low fidelity prototypes are those prototypes which you can make fast, which you can make in a very, very low budget. Now, to make this prototype, you need a piece of paper and you need a pencil and you need about half an hour to make this prototype. Now, if I go to a customer and have no prototype and tell him that, this is the mobile app that I'm thinking about, and you will get this, you will get that, and these are the features and those are the features. If I don't have anything to show, the user will not understand anything. The story will repeat, where I shared about the architect. I didn't share what kind of design I want, and he will end up building something that I don't need. So that's low fidelity prototype, wherein we can make visual representation of the solution that we are thinking for the problem at hand. Now, some other low fidelity prototypes are, paper. You can make a landing page. There are too many, website builders where you can make a landing page where you talk about the solution, the benefits to the users, send it to the users, get their feedback. The other thing you can do is make a paper prototype, use cardboard, use your craft skills that you had developed when you were in preschool, uh, and make something out. At least you can show something to your users, your customers, where they can actually see what you are trying to do. When they say yes, come back, make a high fidelity prototype, which is functional prototype. In some cases, we call it a beta version of the product, which looks like the solution, which has some functionality that the solution will offer. Make a high fidelity prototype. It might take a little more money, it will take a little more time, maybe some more resources. Then you can make a prototype basis understanding what your customers need. Go back, tell them this is how it will look like, this is how it will function, and then when they say yes, you come back and make your product. Now, this is a faster, cheaper, and convenient way of building a product, designing a product. Now, imagine a situation where you think of a product, you spend lakhs of rupees building a product, spend a couple of years building the product, bring it in the market, and the market says, oh, listen, I don't need this product. And the second part, where you are actually using design thinking as a tool, where you are keeping users at the center, understanding what their problem are, defining what their problem is, coming up with solutions using ideation, building a prototype fast, cheap, taking it to the users, getting their feedback, coming back, building a product which is already accepted in the market, and then you launch it. The likelihood of success is higher. Even if you fail fast, you fail cheap, and you fail easy. So that's the 5 stages of design thinking. You start with empathy, you understand the problems, you define the problems. The third stage is you ideate, use different techniques, come up with multiple solutions, create a prototype, whether it is low fidelity or high fidelity prototype. Take it to the users and customers, the same people that you interviewed in the empathy stage. They will say, yes, this solves my problem. Come back, build a product, and before you even realize, you have those people as your customers who are willing to buy the product. So that's design thinking in a nutshell. If you want to go dive deep into it, each stage will take one day at least to understand how it works. And it's done when you are actually having a problem at hand. When you go through these stages, you'll actually come up with innovative solutions. It could be, and multiple solution problems can be solved. It could be your business problem where you are struggling with your profitability. It could be your product problem where customers are not accepting your product. It could be your HR problem where there's a high turnout. It could be a problem where, let's say, you have a hospital, but then patients are not coming. Why? Because they feel the hospital lacks credibility. How can you solve that problem? It could be the medical device that you are using. It could be the services that you are providing. It could be the business model that you have, or it could be any social problem that you are facing, be it your career problem, whether you want to be a doctor, an engineer, a medical a professional, whether you want to start your own practice, whether you want to work for a hospital, whether you want to develop a product. It could be anything, or it could be your career choice. You can use design thinking in all situations. So that design thinking is, in a nutshell, I hope I have been able to explain in 30 minutes as to how the importance of design thinking and how it can work in any situation where you want to come up with a creative and an innovative and human centric solution to the problem that you are solving.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a very interesting, enlightening, and interactive session, especially the personal stories. Like, personal stories make a session so much interesting, right? About your childhood story of how you made a plane, and also the couple and the mouse. And I guess we all would agree that design thinking is not just something about a product which we can actually integrate in all parts of our life, like how you said in case of your career or in a business model. And the best takeaway for us could be that if you want, make a prototype, go for low, like, which cost you less, so that you also have a customer base, and it's easier, right? Thank you so much, sir. So
Pleasure.
now comes the time where, for what we all have been buckling for, we have a few handpicked questions for you. So if you don't mind, I would like to ask you.
Sure, I'd love to answer.
All right. So, okay. As a student, what are the essential steps that we should take to start product designing?
Um, I think the first step in product design is to ask yourself, why am I doing it? Sometimes we want to design a product. The first step is to identify three things. Why am I doing this? For whom am I doing this? And what benefit I want to provide? Right. So the first step to provide to start design product design is to identify the solution that you want to provide to the problem, and even before that, identify the problem that you are solving. Again, if I go back to the define stage, where product design starts when you have identified the right problem, right? It should actually start small with a low fidelity prototype. Any product should first become a prototype. Once the prototype is successful in gaining acceptance from the user, then you go ahead in the next stage of product design, right? So I think identification of the right problem and an effective solution is the first step to product design.
Thank you, sir. So, moving on to the next question. Um, does a homemade sample count as a official prototype?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think if you, I mean, let me take example of probably the best marketer of that the world has seen, Steve Jobs, right? The first prototype of Mac computers, Apple computers, were developed in his parents' garage when he was 20 years old. So it doesn't matter whether you have the most sophisticated tools, devices, and machines to make a prototype. What matters is whether your prototype represents the solution that you want to provide to the world. If it visually represents what you want to provide, it could start from your home, it could start from your classroom, it could start from the office, or your dining table where you are having food and thinking about what should I do to solve this problem.
Right, that is true. So it should start small, but that's still fine, even if it
Yes.
does. So, so the next question is, what are the challenges we can face while making the prototype?
Um, I think the most important part of prototyping is, you know, I think I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who are afraid of making a prototype. The first thing is that there is a mental block that, whether I can make a prototype or not. In some cases, when your solution is highly technological, it becomes a little difficult to get access to those technologies, right? So some challenges that you might face is, whether I have the technology to build the prototype or not, or do I have enough resources to make the prototype or not. And in that situation, what comes to your rescue is a low fidelity prototype. Give you, if I'm allowed, I'll share another story. There was a school that, a few people wanted to start a school in Spain, a new type of school, a holistic education type of school, a school where things were, taught in a different way than they were taught in a regular school. What they did, I mean, how can you have a prototype in that situation unless you have a school? What they did, these are about 6 to 8 people who wanted to change the way education worked. So what they did was they created a website, a single page website, we call it landing pages, where they talked about the problem that they felt uh, are there with the education there in Spain, through their interaction of parents. And in that website, they mentioned that we want to build school which has these facilities, features, and this is how we are going to teach our kids as to how to become a global citizen and responsible citizen, and so on and so forth. It was just one website. You know, the challenge was how to build a school even, without getting a validation from the market whether they need this kind of new concept or not. They built a website, a one page website, a landing page, and they showed it to about 10 to 11,000 parents whose kids were in the age group of 6 to 14, where that is the age group where kids go to school in those regions. To their surprise, about 70% of the participants, the respondents, said yes, if this is something that is available, we would be happy to send our kids to this kind of school. Now they have got 70% acceptance. Basis this prototype, where they had challenge of making an entire building of school, they made a website, a low fidelity prototype. They got the validation, and now they were confident that this will work. They borrowed money, they got funded, and they built the school, and they had about 5,000 admissions in year one. I think there are challenges in building prototypes, but then there are opportunities and there are ways of overcoming those challenges as
Right. Like very well said, sir. So, like now, for a high fidelity prototype, how can one source the materials for their prototype? Like, no, it is not exactly needed for a low fidelity prototype. So,
well.
what can be the case for the other one?
Okay, so one of the ways you can source materials for high fidelity prototype is, the first thing you need to make a list of what materials you need. Uh, Identify whether these materials are available or not. So we call it a BOM, bill of material. In design terms, we call it BOM, bill of material. Make list of materials, see which materials are available uh, easily in the market, and identify those materials that are not available. There are, you know, uh, in some cases, what we can do is source those materials from where they are. So, for example, for, if you need a specific type of steel, if you need a specific type of iron, if you need a specific type of adhesive, if you need a specific type of plastic, there are portals where there are B2B, products being sold, domestically and, internationally as well. So one of the classic ways of, you need X category of a steel in, let's say, 100 kgs or 1 ton or whatever the measures, let's say, and so I can identify the category, and there is a portal called, let's say, is as simple as India Mart, where I can source materials from. One of the other ways of doing that is, uh, now for high fidelity prototype, if you don't want to source expensive materials, whereas, either they are expensive or they are not easily available in the market or in the area that you live in, you can actually go for a 3D printing prototype, 3D printed prototype. So for example, this bottle might require some specific type of plastic which is expensive in nature and not available easily in small quantity. So if I want to source material, I have to buy at least X amount of, maybe a kg or ton or whatever the units are, and have to pay a lot of money. I still feel that you have an opportunity uh, to make it at a cheaper rate, because high fidelity prototype is something still a visually functional product of your solution. So you can go for a 3D printing instead of sourcing those materials, which proves to be faster and easier and comparatively much cheaper way of creating a high fidelity functional prototype. So think of that. And if it is a technology product, of course, coding is what you need. So with that, there is no question of, availability. But when it comes to material, I think go for 3D printing, even though it is a little expensive, but not as expensive as buying material from uh, other places. And of course, there are vendors, there are people who can help you find the right kind of materials as well. But my take on it is, if, let's say, for example, you want to make a medical device, right? So you can still use alternative material which is available and cheaper, make a 3D printed prototype out of it, and still it can solve the purpose. The only suggestion is, don't go for full-fledged production unless you have received validation from your market and users that this is the solution that they want to
Right. And like 3D printing is upcoming technology, but
have.
it
Yes.
also gives customers a kind of credibility. So, and it helps us to find a middle ground. So, that is a really good
Yes.
option. Right.
Yes.
So, like moving on to the last question, which will pretty much sum up the session, is what do you need, or like what does one need to be a good product designer?
I think what you need is a few things, which probably, you can find if you go back to your childhood. A good product designer is someone who is creative. Creativity is something that you need. I sometimes wonder where, if you ask, kids who are 5, 6, 7 years old, and if you ask them, whether they dance, sing, paint, all of them will say yes. And if you ask people like us, who are, 18, 20, 30, 40 years old, and if you ask them how many of you sing, dance, and paint, I think about 5, 10% of people will say, yeah, I do. I think you need creativity. The second thing you need is empathy. A good product designer is someone who can understand the user and his or her requirements well. I think it's not about the hard skills of design, of be able to use certain softwares. It's about the soft skills, that you should be a good observer. You should be able to observe what users go through when you are designing. The third thing is curiosity and critical thinking, which means asking the right kind of question that help you reach the root of the problem. Sometimes if we ask the wrong question, it's like this. If you want to be a critical thinker, you need to change the question. Example, if I ask you a question, a simple math question, 5 plus 5, everybody knows the answer. So am I making you creative in answering this question? Probably not. Am I making you critically think when you are answering this question? No, because the answer is 10. It's a universal answer, nobody can change it, right? However, if I change the question to blank plus blank equal to 10, it's about asking the right question, and I will have infinite answers. 5 plus 5, 8 plus 2, 9 plus 1, 4 plus 6, minus 10 plus 20. There are multiple answers, right? So a good product designer is essentially a combination of hard skill where the designs, some softwares or some techniques to design, and also some soft skills like being creative, critical thinking, and curiosity are, things that you need to be a good product designer. And empathy, of course.
Right, sir. Right, right. So, like you literally told all the like these are really the prerequisites which you need to become a good designer. And just like design thinking, critical thinking is also very important. It is somewhat like they actually go hand in hand. So, like very truly said, sir. So we come to the end of the Q&A session. Thank you so much, sir, for such amazing answers. I'm sure our students learned something, some insights, which they can actually, include in their future ventures. So I request Ryan to give the vote of thanks.
Okay. A warm and hearty greeting to one and all present here. I just cannot fail to acknowledge this part that I am indeed honored to propose the vote of thanks on such an esteemed occasion. I, Ryan Varghese, on behalf of the entire IIC-PCP crew, would like to appreciate the diligent efforts of Mr. Chirag Gujarati sir, who took out time amidst his austere schedule to kindle our inquisitiveness and knowledge on the topics of prototyping, process designing, critical thinking, which forms obviously the backbone of both innovation and entrepreneurship. I'd also take this opportunity to thank our patrons, Pawar sir, Pokharkar ma'am, Rao ma'am, Bhutiraja sir, Sharvil sir, Deepali ma'am, and the entire panel of eminent faculty members who keep a check on the functioning of the cell and coordinate with us even at dark 13. I also extend my gratitude to Mr. Saurabh sir and the entire team of MIDA School of Entrepreneurship who have been working closely with the entire forum, IIC-PCP, for such a grand success of this event. Last but not the least, I would also extend my gratitude and indebtedness to all the student volunteers and all those candidates and attendees who are gathered here today and have contributed to the success of this event. Thank you. Thanks all for coming today. Thank you.